Welcome back, you night owls. Tonight we travel somewhere you've probably imagined before, but likely never quite like this. Imagine a field, wet with dew and churned by hooves. Mist rolls low over furrows carved by cart wheels and footprints. Crows circle, already sensing what the day will bring. A distant horn, more bark than melody, splits the air, and a human being, you, finds yourself not in pyjamas, but inside something terribly itchy, metallic, and laced with the unmistakable scent of someone else's sweat. Welcome to a medieval battlefield. You're not observing, you're enlisted, and, spoiler alert, they probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, post your location and the local time in the comments below. I love seeing where you're all tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. He wakes before sunrise. Not by choice, mind you, but because a burly man with half a beard and a whole lot of halitosis is stomping around the tent, yelling something about formation. The air is cold enough to make your teeth ache and smells like smoke, mould, and something vaguely like boiled onions. Whatever dream he was having, probably about coffee and clean sheets, is gone now. His back is sore. The ground is unforgiving. The straw mattress beneath him crunches in a way that straw really shouldn't. There's no gentle wake up soldier here. It's more of a kick you in the ribs and hope you're breathing type of vibe. He tries to sit up, instantly regretting it. The tent ceiling hangs low, patched with fabric, and... wait, is that squirrel fur? Possibly. They're resourceful here. Not exactly Etsy levels of craftsmanship, but it keeps the wind out. The morning routine is brutal. Forget brushing teeth or warm showers. There's a communal bucket outside, which has 3 possible purposes: washing, drinking, and peeing, though no one seems to remember in which order. He dips his hands into the icy water and splashes his face, yelping softly. Soap? Not today. Possibly not this century. Someone nearby is already vomiting. Possibly from nerves. Possibly from last night's stew. It had chunks in it that were... ambiguous. The camp itself is alive with tension. Men, young, old, and everything in between, trudge through the muck dragging pikes, swords, and half-frozen limbs. Horses whinny and stamp, their breath puffing like smoke in the morning chill. A boy no older than 12 is trying to feed them, barely managing not to get trampled. You see, contrary to popular film imagery, not everyone here is a shining knight. Most are peasants, pressed into service by a lord they'll never meet. Some wield makeshift weapons, clubs, sickles, even sharpened farm tools. One man has tied metal pans to his chest for protection. It's funny until you realise he's dead serious. And then, of course, there's the armour. It gleams in museums. It glows in video games. Here, it groans. It pinches. It smells like mildew and desperation. Our poor traveller tries to lace up a gambeson, a padded Under Armour jacket that feels like someone wrapped a futon around his torso and then punched him repeatedly. It's stiff from old sweat. He can't bend at the waist. Breathing is optional. Next comes the mail shirt. Actual chain mail, not the kind you get in your inbox. It weighs about as much as a medium-sized dog and drapes over his body like a cold, wet net. Slipping it over his head nearly dislocates his shoulder. 2 soldiers have to help yank it down while laughing. The phrase rookie hasn't been invented yet, but they get the point across with a slap on the back hard enough to rattle teeth. Boots? They're mismatched. One is too small, the other leaks. Socks? Made of wool so scratchy it could double as sandpaper. He asks if there's a better pair. The answer is a bark of laughter followed by, they buried the last guy with his. Now let's pause a moment for a mainstream historical fact. Contrary to popular belief, medieval armies didn't always fight in spring or summer. Many battles were waged in the colder months. The Battle of Towton in 1461, often called the bloodiest battle on English soil, occurred in March during a blizzard. This added layers of misery, frozen ground, frostbitten fingers, and weapons that stuck to the skin if held too long. Speaking of weather, it's raining. Not hard, just enough to soak the ground and make every step a slippery gamble. Mud cakes onto everything. A rat skitters across his boot. He doesn't scream, but it's close. He's led to the edge of the camp where others gather around a fire. Someone hands him a piece of hard bread and a scoop of something greyish from a pot. It tastes like regret, or ashes. Possibly both. He forces it down. As the sun lifts, a hazy, bloated orange disk behind misty clouds, the field comes into focus. Hills roll into the distance lined with scrubby trees and trenches. Flags flap limply in the breeze. Horns blare again, off-key and ominous. Horses are being saddled. Men shout orders. The tempo increases. It's like watching an orchestra tune up. Only instead of violins, it's swords and catapults. And here's a quirky tidbit. Some armies, especially in France and Eastern Europe, would actually use musicians, not just drummers but bagpipers, fiddlers, and even entire small bands to rally troops and boost morale. Our traveller doesn't hear any music though, just cursing and coughing. He spots the noble commanders on a rise overlooking the field. Their armour does gleam. Their horses are impressive. Their tents are big enough to host a Renaissance fair. They do not mingle. They point. They nod. They speak in hushed Latin. He realises something chilling. They don't care if he lives. He's a body, a number in the ledger. Here's something historians still argue over: how well organised medieval armies truly were. Some scholars insist that formations, ranks and signalling systems were precise and sophisticated, especially under commanders like Edward III. Others believe it was often chaos, units forgetting orders, messengers getting lost, and commanders making decisions based more on vibes than strategy. Our poor traveller is herded into a group wielding spears. They're instructed to form a line, keep tight, and march forward on command. The drill lasts 30 seconds before someone sneezes and drops their weapon. Another man slips in the mud and dislocates a knee. He's dragged away by two others muttering curses. There are no stretchers, no timeouts. Our guy glances at the others. Most look terrified. One is crying, one is whispering a prayer that involves livestock for some reason. Another is staring at the sky like he's trying to make a last-minute deal with any god listening. From the ridge, the commander raises a gauntleted hand. The horns blow again. The enemy, until now just a rumour, emerges from the far tree line. They're marching too, and there are so many of them. This moment is where movies usually fade into swelling music or slow motion. But here, it's silent. Just the sound of boots squelching in mud and the wet clink of metal on metal. There's no pep talk, no inspiring speech, just one grizzled veteran who turns to the traveller, grins with 3 teeth and says, "Keep your mouth closed, or the crows will pick your tongue first." Charming. The final horn sounds. It's go time. With a grunt, the entire line starts moving. Forward, toward whatever fate awaits. Every step feels heavier than the last. Not just from the gear, but from the dawning realisation. He might not even make it to lunchtime. The line trudges forward, stiff with tension and muddy to the knees. He tries to hold the spear upright, but it wobbles in his grip like a misbehaving broomstick. The command was clear: keep formation, move in unison, don't run. But his heart pounds like a kettle drum, and every step feels more like wading through jelly than marching into glory. The weight of his armour, well, borrowed armour really, grows with every pace. The chainmail drags on his shoulders, grinding into the bones beneath. His gambeson, damp and sour-smelling, rubs raw at the neck and underarms. The helmet sits too tight, pressing against his temples with the unkind love of a medieval vice. And it's not even the heavy stuff. He was given a kettle helmet, the kind shaped like an upside-down pot. It wobbles annoyingly, offering as much vision as a mailbox slot. To make matters worse, the ground beneath his boots is far from level. The churned battlefield is a mess of rabbit holes, abandoned fire pits, and other men's offerings. He nearly goes down twice, but catches himself on the shoulder of the man next to him, a wiry figure with haunted eyes and a scar that runs from ear to collarbone. The man says nothing, just keeps marching, like a wind-up toy cursed with purpose. Around him, hundreds of similar boots press into the muck, the slosh and squelch becoming rhythmic like the slow drum of doom. One misstep and the whole line could falter. They're told not to break ranks, ever, but he sees cracks already, men faltering, glancing to the sides. One guy throws up into his helmet and then just keeps wearing it. No one stops him. Now let's talk reality. Most medieval infantry didn't actually run into battle like Hollywood would have you believe. Sprinting in full gear was a fast route to early cardiac arrest. The goal was to approach steadily, let the archers soften the enemy, and then clash like two walls of meat and metal. That's what our poor traveller is approaching. Not a duel, not an action sequence, just a slam of desperate bodies and crude weapons. Suddenly a new sound cuts through the wet quiet. A thrum of air followed by the unmistakable thud of an arrow embedding in something soft. It's not theatrical. No screaming Wilhelm, just a grunt, and a man 2 paces to the left crumples like a puppet with snipped strings. Our traveller jerks his head around. There's no time. Arrows fall like hail, quiet, swift, and merciless. A few ping off helmets. Most find gaps in armour, or fabric, or skin. He raises his buckler, though buckler is generous. It's a wooden plank, barely curved, bound in iron. He holds it awkwardly, not trained, not drilled. His arms shake from the effort. More arrows zip past. One sticks in the mud near his boot. Another glances off his helmet, ringing his ears like a church bell. And now the front ranks are slowing. The two armies are about to meet. From here he finally sees the enemy up close, and they don't look any less terrified. Their armour is just as dented, their boots just as muddy. One has a bandage over both eyes. What's he doing here? Another swings a mace like he's never held it before. This is not a gathering of professionals. This is panic, organised into ranks. And then it happens. A crash like the world splitting open. The front ranks collide. Metal on metal, bone on wood, teeth on steel. Screams, grunts, bellows. The noise is overwhelming. It rattles the chest more than the ears. Our traveller, still in the second row, is shoved forward by the force behind him. His spear jabs blindly. He doesn't even know where it lands. Something hits his shield. A rock? A fist? A body? He can't see. His helmet slips again, blinding him momentarily. He stumbles, nearly falling over a man with an axe buried in his thigh. Blood is real now, bright, shocking, and warm. It spatters on his face, his arms, his boots. He gags, swallowing vomit and fear. Quirky historical tidbit. Some soldiers would urinate down their legs right before battle, believing it brought good luck. Others smeared mud on their faces to appear more terrifying, or at least to hide their expressions. Our traveller too is now coated in nature's war paint. Unintentionally, of course. There's a brief lull, not in the battle, but in his mind. A blank space, like someone paused his brain. He stands still, panting, staring at the chaos. Then someone slams into him from the side. His shield flies, his spear is gone, he goes down, flat on his back, staring up at the clouds. He tries to roll, but the chainmail has other ideas. It grabs him, pulls him back, makes every movement feel like struggling through wet cement. Finally, wheezing, he turns over, pushes himself up to his knees, and sees a body face down beside him, unmoving. The man's back is split open, armour sheared like tinfoil. Flies are already gathering. Crows too, because they're always early. He doesn't scream. There's no breath for it. Just a hoarse grunt and the sudden realization he doesn't want to die here. But survival requires effort, so he crawls. Yes, crawls. Over arms, across torsos, beneath flailing limbs and broken weapons. It's undignified. It's filthy. It's smart. Nearby, a mounted knight swings a flail, missing entirely and knocking himself half unconscious on a low-hanging branch. Horses, by the way, do not politely trot around you. They barrel through like furry freight trains. One charges past him now, hooves missing his head by inches. Mud sprays across his eyes. He blinks, sputters. Somewhere above the din, a voice yells something about falling back. But falling back means turning around, exposing your back. That's basically an invitation for a blade between the ribs. Still, he stumbles up, grabbing a fallen sword from the grass. It's heavy. Too heavy. It wasn't made for him. His grip is wrong, but he raises it anyway. And then, miracle of miracles, a moment of silence. Just for a second. The wind shifts. He sees over the battlefield now, the piles, the press, the banners, some fallen, some burning, and a knight standing atop a mound, silhouetted against the sky like he's posing for a statue. Maybe I'll make it, he thinks. And then the knight's horse collapses beneath him, its flank pierced by a dozen arrows. That dream dies fast. Let's talk fringe medical practices, shall we? In the rare cases where wounds were treated mid-battle, usually by monks or desperate field servants, the options were limited. Cauterization with red-hot iron, a paste of honey and mould, surprisingly effective, or, most famously, cobwebs packed into wounds to stop bleeding. Yes, cobwebs. They contain natural antiseptics, and in the absence of neosporin they'll do. Back to our crawler. He's half running now, half stumbling, his sword dragging a furrow behind him. He's not even sure which direction his side is. All the armour looks the same. Mud disguises friend from foe. One man screams at him in Flemish, another swings a club, misses, then offers him a crude thumbs up as if to say, close enough. And here's where historians really argue. Did soldiers feel noble in these moments? Did they think about king and country, or were they just surviving second by second? Some sources romanticise the chivalry, the honour. Others describe it as raw chaos, driven by desperation and animal instinct. The truth probably depends on whether you were giving the orders, or taking them. Eventually the din begins to fade behind him. The traveller, panting and wide-eyed, collapses behind a pile of hay and broken carts. He's not safe. Nowhere is. But for the moment, no one is swinging anything at him. He lies there, chest heaving, hands trembling. A chicken walks by, somehow unbothered. It clucks judgmentally. Of course it does. Nearby, someone is singing. Not a battle chant, not a hymn. Just a sad, cracked voice humming a lullaby in a language our traveller doesn't know. It's eerie, almost calming. He realises he hasn't blinked in a full minute. The stench is worse now, sweat, blood, iron and something sour that turns the stomach. Above, vultures join the circling crows, and he whispers, to no one in particular, "I want to go home." But there's still so much day left. And the worst part? They haven't even brought out the cavalry yet. The chicken is long gone now, wisely flapping off into safer pastures, perhaps to a nearby monastery where monks will scold it gently for trespassing. Meanwhile, our unfortunate traveller remains sprawled behind the cart wreckage, shivering and trying to decide whether to cry or just give up blinking entirely. His armour feels heavier than ever, but it's not the weight of steel, it's the weight of realisation. This isn't going to end quickly. Around him, the army camp has begun to stir in a different way. This isn't the hurried bustle of morning mobilisation, it's something darker. A change in the rhythm. People shuffle rather than march. Groans echo across the field, low and wounded, sometimes human, sometimes not. A horse lies nearby, its sides heaving. The beast's eyes flutter as it tries to rise but can't. Its flank is pierced by a splintered lance, and a raven perches atop it as if awaiting a signal that dinner is served. The traveller can't move yet, not really. His legs cramp when he tries. His fingers tingle. His helmet has slid sideways and there's mud in his ear. The shield is long gone and he can't remember when or how he lost it. His sword, stolen, dropped, then recovered, now lies beside him, chipped at the edge and sticky with something he's not ready to examine. The camp, it turns out, is no refuge. Because while the front lines grind each other into a fine puree of limbs and regrets, the rear isn't some cosy escape. It's a cesspool of its own horrors, a field of broken bodies, confused commands, and people yelling in languages you only half understand. And the smell. Oh, the smell. Let's discuss that, shall we? Mainstream historical fact. Medieval battlefield camps were cesspools, literally and metaphorically. Hygiene was laughably non-existent. With thousands of men packed into a relatively small area and no real sanitation system to speak of, waste was, well, everywhere. The trench you're digging might be for defence, or it might be your toilet, or someone else's. It's a lottery of unfortunate surprises. As he tries to rise, our traveller stumbles past what used to be a cook fire. A blackened cauldron lies on its side, stew leaking into the dirt. A wooden ladle still floats in the mess. Nearby, a soldier is sitting cross-legged, cradling a broken arm and muttering to himself. His left boot is missing, but he doesn't seem to notice. A boy, not more than 13, rushes past them, carrying a bucket of water that sloshes wildly. It's unclear where he's taking it. It might be for washing wounds, or maybe to douse a fire that started somewhere along the camp's edge. Fire, you see, doesn't care about allegiances. When it finds dry canvas and spilled oil, it joins the war without a uniform. Our time-displaced friend finally gets to his feet, albeit shakily. The camp is bigger than it looked at dawn. Rows of tents sag from wet ropes. Some are half collapsed. Others have been trampled. A cart with broken wheels lists to the side, its contents, barrels of salted meat, spilled into the mud and already attracting flies the size of grapes. He walks cautiously, careful to avoid pools that might be more than just water. Every few paces someone coughs, not polite coughing, not even smokers coughing. This is something deeper, wet, hacking, chest-rattling spasms that suggest illness beyond exhaustion. The kind of sound you don't walk toward unless you have a death wish or very strong lungs. Here's a fun, and by fun we mean horrifying, tidbit. Lice and fleas were battlefield regulars, often carrying diseases like typhus and trench fever. Soldiers itched constantly. Some shaved their heads to manage the infestation. Others just ignored it, scratching so much they opened wounds that, you guessed it, turned septic. Our traveller now feels a crawling itch at the base of his neck and tries not to think about it. He passes what looks like a makeshift medical area. Medical is a generous term. It's a stretch of flattened grass and bloodied cloth. A monk works silently, pressing what might be a poultice, or a handful of moss, into a screaming man's thigh. The man thrashes until two others pin him down. There are no painkillers, no ether, just grit and willpower. Nearby, another man lies with a tourniquet on his leg. The limb below the knee is gone, probably burned, considering the smell. The man's eyes are open, but they stare through everything. No blinking, no recognition. A crow hops over, curious, and pecks at the leather pouch still tied to his belt. The traveller keeps walking. A group of men sit near a pile of discarded weapons. They look like scavengers, picking through the carnage for anything reusable. One sharpens a dagger on a rock. Another tries on helmets like he's shopping at a nightmarish thrift store. Blood spatters are just part of the aesthetic. One of them looks up and calls out, "New?" Our traveller shakes his head mutely. The man laughs. They all say that. He turns away. And here comes a historical debate historians still wrestle with. To what extent did battlefield looting occur among the common soldiery? Was it tolerated? Was it punished? Was it even discouraged? Some argue it was unofficially allowed, especially if you were poor and alive at the end of the day. Others claim strict hierarchies existed, with loot going up the chain to the noble commanders. What's certain is this. If someone's dead and has nice boots, those boots won't stay unclaimed long. He makes his way to the mess tent, or what's left of it. A few half-hearted attempts at food are underway. A man stirs something in a pot using the end of a broken spear. The ingredients are unclear, though something white and vaguely root-shaped pokes out occasionally. He's offered a bowl. He takes it, thankful but wary. It tastes like despair. Still, food is food. And here's another odd tidbit. In some medieval camps, garlic was used liberally in cooking, not for flavour, but for its supposed medicinal properties. It was believed to ward off illness, evil spirits, and occasionally bad luck. Whether it worked is up for debate, but it certainly didn't help the breath situation. Across the camp, someone's trying to rally troops. A horn sounds again, not the trumpet of earlier, but a flatter, more urgent tone. Word spreads quickly. Another skirmish is forming. A flank broke. The left side is being overwhelmed. The traveller instinctively steps backward, but a grizzled sergeant, half drunk, wholly unimpressed, grabs his arm. "You've got legs. You can walk. You're still part of this." He's shoved toward a group being mustered. Pikes are distributed again, though one man protests that his still has blood on it. The quartermaster shrugs. Better than none. The line forms, looser than before. Tired eyes, shallow breathing. One man prays. Another swigs from a flask and wipes his mouth on a torn sleeve. This time, no marching, just running. Chaos. The idea of formation has dissolved into something more primal. Just get there. Don't die. He runs with them, feet slipping in the mud, breath coming in gasps. The ground is thicker now, clotted with soaked earth, discarded gear, and other things he refuses to identify. Then they're in it again. This time it's worse. The clash isn't even organised. It's a mess of swinging, grappling, shrieking. One man swings a halberd and takes off part of another man's helmet and ear. A woman with a knife emerges from the crowd and stabs wildly before vanishing back into the melee. Was she part of the army? A camp follower? No one knows. No one cares. A corpse falls on our traveller, knocking him down. Again. He tries to push it off, but the body is limp and heavy. He panics, flails, kicks, eventually crawls free, his face now a grotesque mask of sweat, grime, and someone else's blood. He's not crying, but it's close. He wants to scream. Not from fear this time, but from frustration, exhaustion, horror. He wants to wake up, to leave, to click his heels and go home like Dorothy with PTSD. Instead, he hears drums again. New ones, different rhythm, different pitch, reinforcements, or something worse. He doesn't know. He only knows one thing now. If this is what day one looks like, he may not see day two. Mud clings to his legs like an uninvited guest that refuses to leave. Every step is a negotiation between slipping and sinking, and his legs are beginning to wobble like cheap scaffolding. Around him, the skirmish winds down. Not because anyone has won, but because everyone is simply too exhausted to keep swinging. The bodies on the ground outnumber the men standing, and silence returns in a heavy, choking way. But there's no cheering, no triumphant cries. Only coughing, limping, and the occasional shout as someone discovers a wound they didn't realise they had until the adrenaline faded. And through it all, one thing becomes crushingly clear. He still hasn't been trained. Not really. Oh sure, he's been told where to stand and how to hold a spear, sort of. He's been shoved into formation and yelled at until his ears rang. But there's been no structured drilling, no repetition, no rhythm to follow. If he were lucky, he might have been taught a few hacks at the local village square, swinging a stick at a dummy made of straw and pig guts. But out here, training is something that happens during the fight, if you survive long enough to learn anything. Let's debunk a myth real quick. While knights and professional soldiers did undergo formal training, some even starting from boyhood, the average foot soldier in medieval Europe had little more than basic instruction. Most were conscripted farmers, forced into service by local lords or monarchs. Many had never held a weapon before their first battle, so when it came time to fight, the results were messy. Our traveller experiences this firsthand, back in the relative safety of the rear line, if you can call it that. He watches two men practice sparring with dull blades. It's more like an awkward fencing match between drunken scarecrows. Their stances are off, their timing's worse. One trips over his own feet and lands flat on his back, wheezing. The other offers a hand, but gets slapped away. Apparently, pride survived the impact. Nearby, a wiry man with a leather eye patch and a permanent scowl barks instructions at a group of newcomers. "Thrust low, not high," he yells, jabbing the air with a splintered stick. "No one aims for your head. They go for your legs. You go down, you're dead. Simple." The group nods, some understanding, others just mimicking. Our friend is ushered into the back of this makeshift training circle, his arms trembling as he tries to mimic the lunge. The eye patch man snorts. "You're a walking corpse, boy. Try again." He does. It's marginally better. The man grunts in reluctant approval. "All right, fine," he mutters. "You die on the second swing instead of the first." Ah, praise. Medieval style. A quirky little detail here. In some cultures, training dummies were crafted not just from straw, but from sacks filled with sand, bones, or even spoiled meat. Because nothing says realism like punching a beefy bag that bleeds when you hit it. In fact, some accounts from Eastern Europe describe warriors using animal carcasses to practice blade penetration depth. But no such equipment graces this field. Here, the best you get is a sweaty partner and a lecture about swinging from the hip. The traveller watches a veteran demonstrate footwork. It's subtle, just a series of side steps and lunges, but it's elegant in its own grim way. There's a rhythm, almost like a dance, except this dance ends with someone lying on the floor. Possibly you. Then the veterans move to shield drills. Again, no actual shields, just wooden planks or whatever they can lift. The traveller gets paired with a man whose teeth are all missing on one side of his mouth. They trade blows, slow at first, then faster. His arms burn, his neck aches. He gasps for breath. His partner barely sweats. The session ends when someone screams in the distance, a deep, hollow wail that echoes across the field. The group freezes, a pause. Then everyone returns to their business without comment. No one even bothers to check. Training doesn't stop for casualties unless they're your casualties. Let's pause for a historical debate. Some historians argue that certain medieval militias were much better trained than we give them credit for. especially those from free towns or regions where military service was more culturally ingrained. The Swiss pikemen, for example, were known for their brutal effectiveness and discipline. Others counter that outside of elite or professional troops, most foot soldiers were thrown into combat with minimal preparation, relying on brute instinct and peer imitation to survive. Our traveller's current condition certainly supports the latter view. He collapses against a post and gulps from a skin of tepid water. It tastes like old leather and regret. He pours some over his head, not because it helps, but because it feels vaguely like doing something useful. Then someone whistles. He looks up. It's the drill leader again, pointing at him. You, sling duty, get your gear. He doesn't even get a chance to ask what that means before a sack is thrown at him. Inside are stones, rounded, smooth, and heavy. A crude leather sling is handed over next. It looks like a slingshot's weird uncle. No instructions follow, so he tries and fails. The stone whips around once before flying off in entirely the wrong direction, landing in a cookpot 100 feet away. The cook swears colourfully. The drill leader shakes his head. Put him on bucket duty. And just like that, he's carrying water. Again. This is the hidden half of training. The humiliation, the menial work, the endless repetitions. You haul buckets, fix tents, clean weapons, and listen to men who've been in this nightmare longer than you lecture about what not to do while dying. You learn strange things, too. Like the fact that some warriors believed certain herbs, tucked into boots or armour, could prevent injury. Rue, sage, or even garlic cloves. The traveller tries this later, tucking a few pungent leaves into his sock just in case. It doesn't help the smell. He also learns a new phrase. Don't stick your foot where your head wouldn't go. It's battlefield wisdom. It means don't advance into places you can't survive escaping from. Trench corners, narrow passes, collapsed tent rows. Too easy to get flanked, trapped, skewered. And then there's the 20-second rule. If you can last the first 20 seconds of a melee, one archer says over a fire, you've got a better chance. Most don't. Too scared, too slow, too proud. He takes that to heart. Later that evening, more training. This time it's formation drills. Half-hearted, chaotic, but better than nothing. He lines up with 10 others, spear in hand, shields in front. The command is barked. Advance, brace, strike. They do. Sort of. Someone fumbles. The line breaks. The instructor shouts himself hoarse. Again, the process repeats, over and over, until night falls and the torches are lit. That's when the real training starts. Night drills. Because surprise attacks don't care if you're sleepy. They're marched through muddy fields, told to maintain ranks, keep pace, listen for commands. It's hard, exhausting, nonsensical at times. But slowly his muscles begin to remember the steps even when his mind fades. This is learning, medieval style. One bruise at a time, a fringe detail for the insomniacs among you. In some medieval armies, commanders deliberately kept soldiers awake for extended periods before battles, believing it would increase ferocity or make them more pliable to orders. Sleep deprivation, it turns out, wasn't invented by tech startups. Finally, at some hour too late to matter, they're dismissed. Back to camp, back to cold ground, stiff joints, and a blanket that smells suspiciously like horse. The traveller lies down, every inch of him aching. He thinks about training, not just the swinging of weapons or marching in time, but the way it reshaped him in a single day. He's not stronger yet, but he hurts less. And in this place, that counts for something. Above, the stars are bright, uncaring, and cold. And somewhere out in the dark, the next battle waits. Sleep comes in pieces, jagged and ill-fitting and never for long. A footstep here, a scream there, the distant howl of wolves, or something trying very hard to sound like them, punctuates the night like a cruel joke. Our traveller, curled like a tired beetle beneath a lice-ridden woolen blanket, wakes more exhausted than when he closed his eyes. The sun is already slicing through the mist when the call goes out. The horns, those awful horns, wail again, as if heralding both duty and doom. Men grumble and stretch. Some can't, others won't. This morning is different, though, tense in a new way. There's talk of a real engagement, not a skirmish, not some scattered testing of the lines. This is it, the big one. The commanders, from their velvet-lined tents and horses so clean they might have been painted, have finally decided it's time to put all the meat on the board. Our traveller is summoned, not as an elite, not as a hero, but as part of the faceless many, the expendables, the padding between knights, human insulation. And here's the hard truth. Strategy, in the medieval world, isn't built for people like him. Let's drop a mainstream historical fact. While noble commanders often studied classical military theory, Arrian, Vegetius, even fragments of Caesar's writings, their plans rarely accounted for the actual lives of foot soldiers. Instead, strategy was often a brutal arithmetic. How many of ours can we afford to lose while ensuring more of theirs don't return? He lines up with hundreds of others in a muddy field bordered by a low ridge. Someone's drawn a rough map in the dirt using a stick, pointing at where each unit will go. The map is wiped away 5 minutes later when a dog runs through it, wagging its tail. Strategy, folks. The traveller is handed a pike, this one longer than before, nearly twice his height. It bows in the middle from use and has a splinter near the grip that digs into his palm. No one offers gloves. This is not a hobby club. Commands are shouted. Standards are raised. Banners of lions, stags, crosses, dragons. They flap dramatically, which is about the only thing going well so far. Our traveller glances at the men around him. Familiar faces from the last drills. A few nod grimly. One, the gap-toothed man from earlier, offers a whispered prayer, asking, oddly specifically, that if he must die today, let it at least be in the ribs and not the face. This is the morale level. Now let's pause on a debate. Historians continue to wrestle with how effective medieval military tactics really were, while some battles, like Agincourt, are praised for their clever use of terrain and archers. Others seem to be decided by whoever was less tired or had more horses. The line between genius and luck was blurry, especially when messengers were unreliable and visibility on the field dropped to zero once the first clash began. Our traveller's formation starts to move, not charging, not yet, but positioning. The terrain is hilly, uneven. They're instructed to hold the left flank, which sounds important until you realise that left flank really means try not to get outflanked yourselves. Ahead, in the near distance, the enemy army is assembling. Shields in tight walls, horses shifting restlessly, archers readying arrows. The sound is like a hive, buzzing, murmuring, vibrating with menace. He gulps. A horn blares. Not theirs. Theirs. The enemy makes the first move. Archers release. The sky darkens. Not literally, but it feels that way. Arrows rain down with a hiss, and he instinctively raises his shield. Oh wait, he doesn't have a shield this time, just a pike. Wonderful. He hunches, tries to make himself small. Arrows thump into the ground, into men, into metal. One hits the man in front of him square in the shoulder. The man stares at it like it's a rude letter, then collapses. Panic ripples, but they're shouted back into position, because now it's their turn. They move forward. Not fast, measured. The goal is to keep the pike steady, angled forward, like the spines of a giant hedgehog. Cavalry hates hedgehogs. Speaking of which, the horses are coming. From the far right, a thundering wave of mounted knights crest the hill. Armour gleams, lances drop, hooves tear up the grass. It's the kind of charge that deserves a dramatic music score. But all the traveller hears is his heartbeat, and the man beside him whispering, "Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!" Let's pause for a quirky detail. Some horses in medieval battle were trained to kick and bite as well as trample. They were war animals in every sense, disciplined, armoured, and deeply terrifying. A warhorse was like a living tank with a mane. The line holds, just barely. The cavalry slams into the pikes. Wood cracks. Screams echo. Horses squeal. Some rear impaled. Riders are thrown. Others push through. The traveller jabs blindly, the tip of his pike disappearing into the chaos. He doesn't know if he hit anyone. He doesn't care. He's still standing, barely. The first wave breaks, scattering as more infantry pours in behind. This is the real meat grinder. Sword meets flesh. Axe meets bone. Shield meets face. And strategy. It evaporates. Plans, formations, ranks, all meaningless now. It's about swinging, dodging, surviving. He falls. Again. Something hits him in the ribs. His breath leaves him. He scrambles up, finds a sword, short, chipped, familiar, and grips it with both hands. The enemy is everywhere. Close. Too close. He stabs. Misses. Swings. Connects. somewhere soft. The man howls and grabs his leg. Not dead, but wounded. It counts. Nearby someone yells, "Push! Push!" He's shoved forward, then backward. His feet slide in blood and mud, and just when he thinks it can't get worse, someone sets fire to the grass. Yes, fire. A desperate gambit, possibly by their side, possibly not. But the smoke rises thick and choking. Visibility drops. Breathing becomes laboured. The line collapses. Here's the debate. Some historians argue that battlefield fires were rare, accidental, and mostly ineffective due to moisture and terrain. Others suggest that burning fields, especially after the enemy advanced, was a calculated strategy in some cases, forcing retreat or causing confusion. Either way, for our traveller, it's a nightmare. He stumbles through the haze, coughing, blind, trips over a corpse, falls into a ditch, emerges again, gasping. The battle swirls, faces blur, noise crescendos. It's an orchestra of agony, and he's a badly tuned triangle. Then, just as suddenly as it began, it starts to recede. The front pushes forward. The enemy retreats. He can't tell if they've won or just paused, but no one's swinging at him now, and he takes that as a small, sweaty victory. He drops the sword, collapses, breathes, trembles. He's alive. For now. Mud again, always mud. It fills his boots, cakes his knees, and squelches loudly enough to betray every step. The air is damp and tastes of iron. A fog still clings low to the ground, and the pale morning light cuts through it like a weak knife. The battle may have paused, but war never really stops. Not out here, not for people like him. He's part of the march now. That's what they call it. Marching. As if it were orderly, rhythmic and proud. In truth, it's a slow, miserable trudge across terrain that seems designed to break spirits. The army, if one can still call it that, is repositioning. Orders came down from someone in velvet robes and golden spurs, someone who didn't see the mud, or the twisted ankles, or the man being carried on a crude stretcher made from a door. They're moving toward better ground, supposedly. High ground, perhaps. Drier, if such a miracle exists. All he knows is that his thighs burn, his back throbs, and every breath tastes like copper and damp wool. Here's a fact for your medieval toolbox. Marching was more dangerous than most people imagine. Disease, exhaustion, and poor food were constant threats. The infamous March to Poitiers in 1356 saw soldiers dropping dead not from swords, but from sunstroke, starvation and dysentery. Some campaigns lost more men on the road than they did in actual battle. Our traveller's journey isn't nearly that long, maybe 6 or 7 miles, but it might as well be 600. His armour, still damp from yesterday's sweat and blood, rubs with every motion. The strap on his left greave has snapped, so it flaps like a busted sandal. His chainmail digs in where his gambeson has torn at the shoulder. The padding is soaked, and it smells like mildew and despair. He passes carts stuck in ditches. Horses collapse mid-stride and are swiftly stripped of tack, armour, and in one unsettling case, meat. The quartermaster yells at anyone who slows. The sergeants bark. One whacks a limping man with the flat of a sword to make him keep up. There's no sympathy in this march, only distance and deadlines. To make it worse, he's blistering, on both feet. He felt it begin yesterday, during the retreat. The slow, stinging burn just behind his heel. Now the blisters have blossomed into something worse. Raw and weeping. He tried wrapping them with scraps from his tunic, but the mud soaks through everything. Every step is agony. He tries to keep pace, leaning on his pike like a cane, but it's clear he's falling behind. A veteran passes him and mutters, "Don't be last." Last gets eaten. By wolves? By men? By the war itself? He doesn't ask. He limps faster. Let's introduce a quirky detail. Medieval armies employed camp followers, a mix of tradespeople, blacksmiths, washerwomen, cooks, and even entertainers. Some were wives or children of soldiers, others were opportunists. These civilians followed the army during marches, trailing behind in carts or on foot, offering services in exchange for food, protection, or coin. And yes, they often suffered the same dangers as the soldiers. Our traveller notices one of them now. A boy no older than 15 pulling a cart piled with spare shields and dented helmets. He wears no armour, just a hood and a grim expression. Their eyes meet. The boy offers a nod as if to say, "Yep, this is real." They press on. Midday arrives. Or rather, the sky gets slightly less grey. A halt is called. Men drop where they stand. A few collapse entirely. The traveller eases himself onto a fallen log and inspects his feet. Blisters. Torn skin. One toenail is black and loose. He tears off the heel of his sock and tries to pad the worst spots with moss. It's not ideal, but it's something. He eats a handful of dried peas from his pouch and drinks lukewarm water from a skin that leaks when held upside down. It tastes like vinegar and sadness. Suddenly a shout from the front. "On your feet! Move out!" breaks over. 20 minutes, maybe less. He groans and rises. Every step now feels like walking on hot coals. His right boot squelches with something he doesn't want to investigate. He walks like a drunk, unsteady, tilting, and he's not alone. Men around him are deteriorating. One walks with his eyes half closed. Another mutters to himself in Latin. A third clutches his stomach and vomits without breaking stride. No one reacts. It's just part of the symphony of suffering. This is how they arrive at the new staging ground. A slight hill, muddy but not flooded, bordered by dead trees and open fields. Defensive positions are assigned. Tents are reset. Fires are built. But it's not rest. It's preparation. For tomorrow. Because tomorrow, they're told, the next wave comes. He finds a spot near the rear, closer to the supplies and slightly less exposed. He huddles beside others, sharing a fire of damp sticks and wet bark. It smokes more than it flames, but the warmth is enough to stop the shaking. Conversation drifts. One man swears he saw a knight crying behind a tent. Another insists the enemy has war elephants. This is unlikely unless Hannibal time-travelled. Someone shares bread. It's stale enough to use as a weapon. Let's sprinkle in a debated point. Medieval logistics. Many assume armies were chaotic in their provisioning, but some sources show surprisingly efficient planning. Records from the English campaigns in France detail exact quantities of wine, bread, meat, and even wax for candles. But that doesn't mean it was evenly distributed. Foot soldiers often got scraps while nobles ate roasted goose under linen awnings. Our traveller? He gets cold porridge and half a roasted onion. Still, it's better than nothing. As the light fades, the wind picks up. With it comes the sound of distant drums. Not theirs. Theirs. Enemy drums. Deep, rhythmic, like a heartbeat underwater. It rattles something in the chest. Someone mutters, "They're close." Someone else whispers, "They've got fresh troops." The traveller pulls his cloak tighter. He's not sure what terrifies him more. The idea of facing more soldiers, or the possibility that these ones aren't exhausted like him. That they've eaten, slept, that their boots aren't filled with blood and mould. A fringe tidbit for the curious. Some soldiers carried tokens, small charms meant to protect them. A rabbit's foot. A vial of holy dirt. One man once tied a fishbone to his spear for luck. Another carried his daughter's tooth in a pouch. Superstition, sure. But in this place you take hope where you can find it. Our traveller checks his own pocket. He's got a pebble, smooth. Found it by the stream. He rubs it now like a worry stone. It doesn't do anything magical, but his heart slows. Slightly. Night falls harder here. The fire dies. The men sleep, or try to. He dreams of shoes that fit, of quiet cafes, of elevators, and of warm, dry socks pulled from a dryer. Then a sergeant kicks him awake. "Form up. Recon patrol needs bodies. You've got legs. Move." His mouth is too dry to protest. He stands and limps into the dark. Because in a medieval battlefield the march never really ends. It just pauses long enough to get worse. Night patrols are a special kind of punishment. They don't come with glory. There's no cheering crowd, no banner-waving commander riding in to deliver a speech about honour. There's just cold air, aching joints, and the creeping knowledge that you're being watched. Possibly by men who want to kill you, or worse, by creatures that don't. The traveller's breath fogs as he limps after the others, the recon group forming a loose, nervous knot in the darkness. They've been given no torches. Too visible. No dogs. Too noisy. Just orders. Check the perimeter. Observe the enemy's movements. Don't die. The group moves slowly, silently, through the muddy fields surrounding the new camp. The only light comes from the sliver of moon above, filtering through skeletal trees. Each man carries a weapon, but none of them feel especially comforting. The traveller has a dagger. It's not sharp. He doesn't know how to hold it properly. The ground beneath their feet squelches with every step. Somewhere far off an owl hoots, a fox screams, an eerie, high-pitched sound that no one is ever truly ready for. One of the younger men gasps and clutches his spear tighter. The rest grimace. Because if you flinch now, what will you do when the arrows fly? Here's a mainstream fact for those keeping count. Medieval warfare did not stop at sunset. While most major engagements happened during the day, night raids, ambushes, and reconnaissance missions were common. Darkness offered cover, but also confusion. More than one army reportedly attacked itself in the dark, mistaking allies for enemies. Fear makes fools of everyone. Our group creeps toward a ridge overlooking a narrow stream. The commander, an older man with a voice like gravel, signals for them to stop. He kneels, gestures for silence, and listens. At first, there's nothing. Then, voices. Faint. Foreign. On the other side of the stream, figures move. Shadows, mostly but distinctly human. Maybe a dozen, setting up tents, hammering posts, laughing. The enemy. They're closer than expected. Much closer. The group ducks low. Breath holds. Even the night seems to go quiet, like it too is listening. One soldier beside the traveller leans too far and slips on the embankment. A splash. Loud. Impossible to ignore. The camp across the stream jolts into life. Shouts. A flare of torchlight. Steel glints. Men run toward the sound. "Fall back!" the commander hisses. No one argues. They run, stumbling, cursing, falling over each other in the dark. The traveller sprints despite his blisters. His foot catches on a root. He tumbles into brambles, thorns clawing at his face and neck. He bites back a cry, rolls to his knees and keeps going. Behind him, the yells grow fainter. They escape. Barely. Back at camp, the report is delivered. The enemy is making camp 2 hills away. They're organised. Rested. Reinforcements, probably. The commander frowns and spits into the fire. They'll hit us at dawn. Of course they will. The traveller collapses onto his patch of ground, bleeding slightly from a thorn gash on his cheek. He doesn't care. He's too tired to care. The taste of fear still coats his tongue. Bitter, metallic, sticky like bad wine. He wraps himself in his cloak and tries to sleep. He can't. He stares at the stars instead. They don't blink. They don't move. They just watch. He wishes they'd look away. Somewhere nearby, a man is singing softly. Something about home, and bread, and clean water. It's oddly beautiful. It's also the saddest thing he's ever heard. Let's take a detour into the realm of the fringe. Some medieval soldiers believed night was haunted, not just by the enemy, but by spirits, demons, and things better left unmentioned. This belief wasn't always metaphorical. Stories circulated of ghostly armies marching silently through fields, of the wild hunt sweeping through forests. A few men refused to patrol after dark for this reason alone. Our traveller wouldn't mind a demon at this point. At least it might offer a quick end. But dawn comes, and with it, the horns. Again. He groans as he stands. His muscles scream. His neck pops. His legs wobble. He's given a new weapon, a short axe with a cracked handle. Better than nothing. His pike is lost, probably lying somewhere near the brambles. No time for breakfast, just water, just orders. Back to formation. The traveller is placed in the second line this time, behind the first wall of shields. He grips the axe with both hands and stares straight ahead. The battlefield is already swarming. The enemy charges from the far side of the valley. Archers, infantry, cavalry. Here's something the movies don't show. Real battle formations were often dense, uncomfortably so. Soldiers were packed shoulder to shoulder. There was no room to swing wildly or pose dramatically. Most of the fighting was hacking and stabbing in tight spaces, where mobility was limited and panic was infectious. The first clash is a thunderous crash of shields and flesh. Spears jab, swords slam, horses scream. Then it's the second line's turn. The traveller moves forward, pushed really into the melee. He swings the axe. It hits something. He's not sure what. He swings again. Then he's hit. Hard. On the side of the head. His helmet saves him, but barely. His ears ring. His vision goes grey for a moment. He stumbles, drops to a knee, swings upward blindly, connects with something. Warm spray hits his arm. He's pulled back by someone shouting, "Form up! Form up!" It's chaos, not battle, just chaos. And yet, somehow they hold the line. The enemy falters, retreats. Cheers rise, weak, breathless, disbelieving. They've survived another wave, another day. They limp back toward camp, fewer than before, far fewer. The commander surveys them and mutters, "Hold tonight. We regroup tomorrow." But the traveller knows better. There's no regrouping, only enduring. There's a sick kind of silence that hangs over a field after battle. Too still, too calm, like the world has taken a breath it doesn't plan to release. That's what greets them as they limp back into camp, each footfall trailing the scent of old sweat, scorched leather, and churned blood-soaked soil. Birds have returned, of course. They always do. Opportunists with wings, hopping through the bodies for whatever morsels are left behind. Our traveller is numb, not the metaphorical kind. The real, bone-deep, can't-feel-your-fingers kind. His arms tremble as he unbuckles what's left of his shoulder guards. His left eye is swelling shut. He doesn't remember how that happened. Someone said he took a pommel to the face. Maybe he did. Hard to keep track of trauma when it comes from all directions at once. He huddles by a fire that barely stays lit, warming hands that still shake from hours of clenching a weapon. The axe, dented, blood-slick, with one chunk missing from its head, rests beside him like a feral pet. He doesn't know if he's more afraid of holding it again or of never seeing it again. It's his only lifeline now. And tomorrow, he'll need it, because the arrows are coming. That's the talk drifting through camp. The enemy's bowmen are on the move. And if there's one thing more terrifying than men with swords, it's men who can kill you from across a field while drinking soup. Let's get historical for a moment. Archers were among the most effective tools on a medieval battlefield, especially longbowmen, like those used by the English at Agincourt or Crécy. A well-trained longbowman could fire 10 to 12 arrows per minute, with draw weights exceeding 100 pounds. Their arrows could pierce mail and sometimes even plate at close range. In the right conditions, a few thousand archers could halt a charge, or end a war. Our traveller doesn't have a bow. He has a shield now, though. Kind of. It's more a door with a strap on it. The quartermaster gave it to him with a grunt and the unforgettable advice, "Keep it in front, or someone else will use it after you. It's splintered, heavy, smells like beer." Maybe it used to be part of a tavern. He doesn't care. It's better than nothing. That evening, just before dusk, the signallers walk through camp banging pans. Not for battle, for preparation. A formation is being organised. A line of shield-bearers standing behind stakes driven into the earth at angles, meant to deter cavalry, but also decent cover for ranged assaults. The traveller is assigned to one of these positions. His job? Stay low. Keep the shield high. Don't die. A simple mission. Terrible odds. And here's a quirky detail. In some battles, soldiers repurposed pavises, large tower-like shields, to create movable walls. These could be stuck into the ground and used for cover, especially by crossbowmen who needed to reload in safety. Ours isn't that lucky. His shield can barely stand upright, let alone support anyone else. As twilight deepens, scouts return. The enemy has positioned archers on the ridge to the east. They'll strike at first light. No surprise attack. Just a slow, precise death from above. He doesn't sleep. None of them do. They lie in shallow trenches, hunched behind their meagre shields, listening to the crackle of firewood and the occasional shriek of an animal in the woods. No one sings tonight, no one hums. Just the sound of chewing, the occasional prayer, and the scraping of dull blades against whetstones. He drifts off around midnight, then wakes with a start. Someone's hand is on his shoulder. Up, it's time. The sky is still dark, but just barely, indigo bleeding toward grey. A breeze moves through the trees like a whisper that something's coming. The air smells of smoke, pine, and dread. The men line up, quiet, shivering. They wait, and then they hear it. That eerie, uncanny sound, a sound that no one mistakes once they've heard it once. The whine of incoming arrows. It's not like in the movies. It's not a whistle. It's a soft flutter, a hiss through the air like a school of angry birds swooping through leaves. Then the impacts, thunks, cracks, screams. A man beside him jerks backward, an arrow in his neck. Another goes down holding his leg. Blood spatters across the traveller's arm. He ducks instinctively, raising the shield, and feels the force of an arrow slam into the wood. It sticks, vibrating. He breathes in short, shallow gasps. More volleys. 10, 15 seconds apart. The archers are working in shifts. Precision, patience, murder by rhythm. He stays low. Others don't. One man panics and runs, just sprints for the woods behind them. He makes it 5 steps before 2 arrows catch him in the back. He crumples forward, limbs twitching. Someone pukes. Someone else sobs. The traveller clenches the shield tighter, his teeth grinding. And here's a historian's debate worth noting. Just how accurate were medieval archers under pressure? Some argue their effectiveness is exaggerated, that in battle conditions with poor visibility and noise, arrows couldn't always find their mark. Others cite records from Agincourt and Falkirk, where thousands of arrows supposedly broke enemy lines before a single sword was drawn. Either way, on days like this, perception becomes reality. And right now the perception is, they're losing. Their commander calls for a repositioning. Get out of the open, regroup behind the ridge. A risky move, but staying is suicide. So they move, in clusters, crawling, sprinting, dragging the wounded. The traveller holds his shield above his head, arrows thunking into it like hail on a tin roof. His arms ache, his legs are jelly, but somehow he makes it. They dive into the tree line behind the ridge, panting, bleeding, filthy. He counts 7 arrows stuck in the shield. 1 went all the way through and nicked his forearm. Shallow. It'll hurt tomorrow. If there is a tomorrow. And just like that, silence again. The archers stop. Maybe they're repositioning. Maybe they're out of arrows. Unlikely. The traveller watches as soldiers regroup, forming pockets of men behind trees, logs, anything solid. A few archers from their side finally respond, loosing arrows back toward the ridge. Not nearly enough. Most don't reach the target, but it's something. Then the worst part begins. Waiting. Not charging. Not defending. Just sitting there. Heart pounding. Breath short. Ears tuned to every leaf rustle. This is the part they never talk about. The psychological weight of war. The stretch between volleys. The silence before screams. The time spent wondering which lung an arrow might choose next. Here's a fringe tidbit to break the tension. Some soldiers believed whistling during battle attracted arrows, not just because it gave away your position, but because it invited death. So whistlers were often silenced, violently. Whether it's true or superstition, our traveller has no plans to pucker his lips. The next volley never comes. Instead, the horn sounds, not theirs, theirs. And the cavalry follows. The traveller grips the axe, the shield is splintered beyond repair, tossed aside. Time to stand again. Time to die, maybe. But not today. He squares his shoulders and joins the line. The first thing he feels is the vibration in the earth. It starts as a tremor, barely there, like the thudding of a distant drum muffled by layers of sod. Then it builds, slowly, steadily, until the ground beneath his feet pulses like a heartbeat. Loose rocks skitter across the mud. Pikes wobble in men's hands. Someone whispers, "They're coming!" No one needs to say who they are. Cavalry. He hears them before he sees them. Hoofbeats, countless and thunderous, rolling across the field like thunder tied to muscle and steel. It's not the galloping rhythm that's frightening, it's the mass, the sheer density of weight moving in unison. A wall of horses, armoured and unarmoured, drawing breath together, muscles coiled, charging as if the land itself bends to them. "Hold the line!" comes the shout. But the line, it's made of peasants. Our traveller is somewhere in the middle, axe in hand, eyes wide as saucers. His shield is gone, reduced to splinters hours ago. His armour, what remains of it, is scratched, dented, and too heavy for his aching back. His only protection now is the man beside him, and the shallow dip in the terrain they're clinging to. Here's your historical anchor. Cavalry charges were a central, terrifying feature of medieval warfare. Knights atop war horses could smash through enemy lines, especially when facing poorly trained infantry. The momentum alone could break formations, and the psychological impact was often more devastating than the actual lances. Yet it wasn't always decisive. When infantry held firm with proper discipline, cavalry could be slowed, even shattered, especially by well-placed pikes or terrain traps. Unfortunately, this formation is neither disciplined nor well-placed. The traveller sees the riders emerge over the ridge. Dozens of them, maybe 100. Lances lowered, banners flapping, armour glinting in the morning haze. They shout, but the words are lost in the roar. Horses snort and foam as they close the gap. He clutches his axe tighter. It feels pitiful, like wielding a toothpick against a falling tree. Brace! The front line drops into formation. Shields angled, pikes raised. The second line follows. He tries to plant his feet, but the mud is too loose. His boots slip. He adjusts, breathes, tells himself it will be over fast. The sound is deafening when the two forces meet. Lances explode through shields. Horses scream. Men fly backward. Armour crumples like tin. One rider crashes into a pike line and is thrown from his saddle, landing in a heap of flailing limbs. Another horse stumbles, breaking a leg, rolling and taking down 3 men with it. The traveller is knocked to the ground, slammed by a man who flies into him from the side. He lands hard, his elbow jarring against a rock. Mud fills his mouth. He spits, gasping. A hoof slams into the earth inches from his head. He rolls, barely escaping a second impact, and drags himself behind a fallen log. The battlefield above him is chaos, a churning storm of hooves, metal, screams, and fear. The horses have broken through part of the line and are now turning, wheeling round for another charge. Some of the infantry fights back, slashing at legs, dragging riders down. A horse topples, another throws its rider. But it's not enough. The line is folding. Here's a fringe tidbit. Not all cavalry were noble knights. Many mounted troops were less armoured, quicker, and tasked with harassing flanks or chasing down routed enemies. Some even carried bows, making them doubly dangerous. In the Byzantine and Islamic worlds, light cavalry was often deadlier than their heavier Western counterparts. And war horses? They weren't just horses, they were trained weapons. Some could bite on command. One charges past the traveller now, riderless, eyes wild and foam flecking its mouth. He pulls himself upright, using his axe to brace against the log. Blood coats the blade, not his, not yet. He limps forward, joining a knot of soldiers rallying near a tree line. Their pikes are gone. They wield axes, maces, swords, whatever they still have. "Here they come," someone shouts. The cavalry is circling for another pass. They brace again. This time they're smarter. They space out, let the trees break their momentum. It's not enough to stop the charge, but it blunts it. The traveller swings his axe as a horse barrels past. It clips the flank, not deep but enough to draw a cry. The rider slashes downward. The blade skims his shoulder, tearing fabric, biting shallowly. He screams but stays upright. Another rider swings for his head. He ducks. The sword catches the man behind him, dropping him instantly. He can't think, only react. Hack, dodge, push, gasp. His arms burn, his vision blurs. Blood drips from his elbow, warm and slick. The charge breaks. They've done it. Held the line. Sort of. Around him the ground is littered with the fallen. Men and horses both. A knight crawls from the wreckage. Helm missing, nose broken, clutching at the mud. Someone kicks him in the head. He doesn't rise again. A debate among historians. Were cavalry charges as dominant as legend claims? Some argue they were situational, dependent on terrain, preparation and morale. Others note the prestige of knights often distorted records, making cavalry seem more crucial than they were. But ask anyone who stood in front of one. They'll say it was the worst 10 minutes of their life. Our traveller would agree. He slumps against a tree, his whole body trembling. His ears ring, his axe is chipped, his armour stinks. His shoulder pulses with pain, but he's alive. He has all his limbs, and, miracle of miracles, he still has boots. Someone presses a water skin into his hand. He drinks, coughing as it spills down his chin. Someone else binds his arm with a strip of cloth torn from a dead man's tunic. "You did all right," says a voice. He looks up. It's the scarred soldier from 2 days ago, the one with the bone-dry sarcasm and no patience for rookies. "Didn't think you'd make it this far," he says, chewing something unidentifiable. Most don't. The traveller tries to laugh, but it comes out as a wheeze. He wants to speak, ask if it's over, if they've won. But he already knows. They haven't. This was just one charge, a small wave in the sea of suffering. Because from the ridge, new banners rise, fresh troops, more cavalry, more hell. He grips the axe tighter and stands. There are certain truths you come to accept on a medieval battlefield. One of them is that horses, beautiful, majestic, galloping beasts, are not your friends. Not out here. Not when they're barreling toward you with armour-strapped flanks and teeth that could chew through fencing. Not when their riders treat reins like whips and stirrups like throne chairs. And especially not when you're on foot. The traveller realises this as another squad of cavalry thunders across the rise, their banners snapping in the wind like the exclamation points of death. The earth vibrates again beneath him, deeper now, more insistent. The tree he's braced against shudders at the root. He glances at the sky instinctively, as if expecting it to open and simply end everything in one merciful breath. It doesn't. Of course it doesn't. He pushes himself upright. His shoulder screams where the shallow sword cut still bleeds beneath its rag-wrapped dressing. His knees crack like firewood. The axe in his hand feels like it weighs twice as much as it did this morning. But he's still here, still standing, somehow. Behind him, what's left of the infantry regroups, haphazard lines forming again, some carrying fresh pikes, others wielding whatever they can scrounge, hammers, shovels, a butcher's cleaver. The formation is loose, confidence is looser. Their commanders shout to reform the front near a stretch of uneven ground, a deliberate choice. Cavalry hates rough footing. Horses slip, wheels break, and if they're lucky, the archers on the far ridge will rain enough hell to scatter the charge before it lands. But if they're lucky is a phrase doing far too much work. Let's get historical again. While the image of the mounted knight charging valiantly into battle is iconic, the reality was far more nuanced. Warhorses were bred and trained for aggression, capable of trampling enemies under hoof. Some were even taught to bite and kick on command. Riders relied heavily on their mounts, not just for mobility but for survival. Yet horses were also vulnerable, an arrow to the neck, a pike to the chest, a hole in the ground. And down they went, 1,200 pounds of muscle collapsing in seconds, and when they fall, they don't fall alone. The traveller remembers that vividly. In the previous charge he'd watched a horse crumple mid-run, its rider pitched forward and crushed beneath the beast's bulk. The man's scream had echoed, long, high, impossibly human. It hadn't stopped when the others ran past. Now, another charge forms. Different banners, different horses, same fear. A horn sounds, low, drawn out, mournful. Then the riders descend. Not toward him, not directly, but toward the flank where the trees thin out. A weak point. The line bends to meet them, men sprinting through muck and brambles to close the gap. The traveller stays near the centre, gripping his axe, sweat running into his eyes. He can hear the breath of the men beside him. Fast, panicked. One is whispering something under his breath, over and over. St. George, St. George, St. George. The other adjusts his grip on a broken spear that's seen better centuries. Then, hoofbeats. Closer now. Louder. He doesn't have time to think. The line ahead collapses with a scream as the cavalry ploughs through. Men go flying. Some try to stand. Others don't get the chance. A rider breaks past the tree line and heads straight for the traveller. Time slows. The horse is massive, its eyes wild, froth flinging from its mouth. The rider is armoured in chain, his helm slit thin and dark. He carries a sword angled low. The traveller moves, not smartly, not tactically, just desperately. He ducks and rolls, mud flying as the horse thunders past. The rider swings, but misses, a clean arc over empty air. The traveller lands hard, his elbow cracking on a stone, vision flashing white. He scrambles to his feet. Another rider comes, this one slower, weapon raised. Instinct takes over. He swings the axe. The blade bites into the rider's leg. Not deep, not enough to stop him, but enough to make the man scream and jerk in the saddle. The horse veers, rider down, then chaos. More horses break through, scattering the formation. Soldiers are screaming. A man is dragged as his foot catches in a stirrup. Another tumbles beneath a hoof and is gone in a blink. Let's toss in a historical tidbit. During battle, many warhorses were outfitted with chamfrons, metal faceplates that made them look like monsters and protected them from glancing blows. Some horses were armoured head to hoof, practically indestructible, but they weren't invincible. Clever soldiers dug pits or placed caltrops, small spiked balls to trip them up. It didn't always work, but when it did, it turned a cavalry charge into a graveyard. The traveller sees one such makeshift trap now, a line of sharpened stakes hidden beneath brush. A horse hits it, crashes down. Rider flung forward, landing hard and not moving. That gives the line a moment. They rally, swords rise, pikes thrust. A knot of infantry cuts off a group of riders surrounding them. Horses rear, blades flash, the ring tightens. A cheer erupts as one rider is pulled down and swarmed. It's brief, but it's hope. The traveller pushes forward, joining the group. He finds himself face to face with another horse, smaller than the rest, panting hard. The rider has dismounted and now swings wildly, a mace clutched in both hands. The traveller parries with his axe, barely, then stumbles. The mace comes down. He rolls left, hears the thud of wood on soil, then comes up and swings low. The axe hits the rider's knee. A scream. The man goes down. It's over in seconds. He steps back, panting, arms shaking, and then quiet. Not full silence, but that heavy, stunned kind of hush that says something just ended, or maybe paused. The cavalry is retreating. This wave, at least. The field is littered with the wreckage of horses and humans. The ground is ripped and bleeding, pockmarked with hoofprints and soaked in red. Bodies twitch, others don't. Let's pause for another scholarly debate. How often were cavalry charges repeated during battle? Some suggest multiple waves were common, especially if the first failed. Others argue that the cost, both in lives and in horseflesh, was too high to sustain repeated attacks. Either way, the psychological damage of a charge was often greater than its tactical gain. Breaking the spirit of the infantry was worth more than breaking bones. Our traveller stands among the ruin, legs shaking. He can't move for a moment, just breathes, just is. A riderless horse passes by limping, one eye swollen shut, blood on its flank. The traveller raises a hand, unsure why. The horse stops. They stare at each other. Two survivors. Two creatures in the wrong place. Then the horse limps on, disappearing into the trees. The traveller turns, limping back toward the remnants of the line. A medic of sorts waves him over. He's treated, sort of. A new bandage. A swallow of bitter ale. A nod. "You did well," the man says. It's the nicest thing he's heard in days. Then another horn sounds in the distance. Different pitch, different army. More are coming. Because as he's learned, survival here is never a finish line. Just an intermission. The battlefield stinks. There's no polite way to put it. After all the sweating, bleeding, trampling, and very literal defecating in terror, the ground smells like something even the rats might second guess. And the wounded, the ones still breathing at least, only add to it. They groan, cough, and clutch their limbs, lying in the mud like discarded rags with just enough life left to feel every second of it. Our traveller is one of the lucky ones. Lucky being relative, of course. He can walk, albeit slowly. His cuts are shallow, his bones intact. But his head throbs, his knees grind like rusted hinges, and his body's covered in a patchwork of bruises that feel like they've been stitched together by a blind carpenter. He finds a rock near a smoking pile of firewood, once a cooking station, now just charcoal and bone, and sits down heavily. He's bleeding again. Not much, just enough to remind him that the worst is far from over. Because now comes the part no one really talks about. What happens after you're injured on a medieval battlefield? Spoiler, it's not a trip to a sterile tent filled with beeping machines and professionals named Brenda. Let's start with a mainstream historical truth. Battlefield medicine in the Middle Ages was, by and large, terrifying. There were no antibiotics, no antiseptics, and very little understanding of germ theory. Wounds were treated with moss, wine, vinegar or urine, whichever was closest or cheapest. Bones were set by pulling, twisting or simply shoving until they felt right. And amputations, done with a saw, no anaesthetic, just someone to hold you down and maybe if you were lucky bite on a stick, and leeches. Oh, so many leeches. The traveller watches as a soldier is laid out on a nearby board, screaming as a man with blackened teeth and a rusted knife cleanses a leg wound with something that smells like fermented socks. The wound itself is nasty, long, deep, already purple at the edges, a bad sign. Another man tries to stop the bleeding with a heated blade. The soldier passes out. That's considered ideal. Our traveller winces and looks away. A woman, possibly a healer, possibly just someone who can keep a straight face in all this, approaches him. She wears a simple tunic, her hands already stained red. She gestures for him to roll up his sleeve. He does. The cloth sticks to the wound with that sickly rip, like opening a package of meat you really didn't want to see. "Doesn't look deep," she mutters. "Feels deep," he replies, instantly regretting speaking. She gives him a look. Not annoyance, exactly. Just the weary expression of someone who's had a long life, and a longer day. She rubs something into the gash, a paste of herbs maybe, or mould. He doesn't ask, then wraps it with cloth and ties it tight. Too tight. "There," she says. He nods. "Thanks. You'll live." She moves on to the next man who has fewer fingers than he started the day with. Here's a quirky bit of historical trivia. Spider webs were often used in wound care, especially in rural regions. Collected, cleaned, and sometimes soaked in vinegar or honey, they were packed into wounds to help clot blood. The belief was that webs were naturally antiseptic, and while not entirely wrong, it's also not exactly FDA approved. The traveller stands, stretching with a wince. Around him, the triage centre looks more like an open-air morgue. Some moan, some whisper. Some have already gone silent, eyes wide open and staring at the sky as if trying to memorise the clouds before they disappear. And then there are the ones who can't be saved. They're set aside, not cruelly but with grim efficiency, left to die, because the medics have limited time, limited resources, and too many mouths whispering help. A soldier limps by with a splintered leg. Another has his arm in a sling made from a shredded banner. One man's jaw is wired shut with a length of string. He nods to the traveller, eyes haunted, teeth clenched. Communication is optional here. The traveller walks slowly back toward the camp. The path is littered with wounded, some on stretchers, others crawling, dragging themselves. No one spares a glance. Empathies run dry for the day. They all want the same thing: food, water, and a place to lie down without getting stepped on. He reaches a clearing where the quartermaster's cart is parked. Supplies, bandages, flasks, firewood, are being rationed. A group of healers argues over who gets what. One tries to claim all the vinegar for holy treatments. Another slaps his hand and takes it back. Our traveller's handed a small loaf of black bread and a flask of something that burns on the way down. Ale, maybe, or kerosene. He drinks anyway, because now he needs to think about not dying of infection. Let's insert a scholarly debate. Historians still argue over just how widespread battlefield care really was. Some evidence suggests well-organised systems in larger armies, especially among the Byzantines and later Islamic forces, with designated surgeons and protocols. Other sources indicate total chaos, with care left to the whims of weather, charity or superstition. The truth, as always, lies somewhere between the pile of good intentions and the cart full of corpses. Speaking of corpses, they're starting to pile up. He sees them everywhere now, in rows, in clumps. Some laid carefully, others left where they fell. The smell is rising. The traveller covers his nose with a scrap of cloth. It helps. Barely. A team of men has begun the grim task of sorting. They check for signs of life, remove valuables and load the bodies onto carts. Those with families will be named. The rest will be burned or buried in pits. Maybe both. He passes a boy, barely older than 15, staring at the body of a man whose armour matches his. Brother? Father? No one tells the boy what to do. He just sits there, kneeling, hands in the mud. This is the aftermath no one wants to see. Not the kings, not the chroniclers, not the painters, but it's the truest part. Later, the traveller returns to the same fire pit he sat at last night. Someone's found onions. They boil in a pot, filling the air with a sharp, sour scent. A soldier mutters, "Smells like feet, but I'll take it." The traveller takes a bowl, eats slowly. The warmth soothes. The taste doesn't matter. Nearby, someone is humming again. A slow, soft melody. It's not a song of triumph. It's a song of still being here. And for now, that's enough. If he were a nobleman, things would be different. A ransom might be arranged, letters sent, gold weighed, and negotiations stretched across weeks. Captured knights sometimes dined better in captivity than they had on the front line. But our traveller, limping, bloodied, with no title and no name that means anything here, isn't worth that kind of fuss. He's worth less than a chicken. And so when the enemy surrounds him, swords raised and armour gleaming under the late-day sun, He knows exactly what he is. Baggage. It happens quickly. One misstep in the forest, a stumble behind retreating lines, a sudden rush from the side. He's seized, not struck down, not skewered, just grabbed, arms twisted behind his back, blade at his throat. They shout, not with rage but boredom, routine. He's another prize in the long tally of war. Peasant, one sneers. He doesn't argue. The worst part? He's almost relieved. The fighting had stopped, at least for him. He's dragged away with a few others, bound with rope and tossed onto a cart pulled by a grumpy mule. The ride is slow, bumpy, and filled with the kind of silence that feels stuffed with unspoken fear. No one talks. A few weep softly. So what happens when you're captured and you're not a noble? Let's lay down a grim historical fact. Most medieval armies didn't bother taking commoners as prisoners. There was no ransom to be had, no political leverage, no lucrative deal back home. Captured peasants were executed, conscripted, or, if someone was feeling particularly charitable or needed labour, enslaved. The travellers' captors seem undecided. They stop at a checkpoint just beyond the tree line where a few tents dot a shallow hill. Guards lounge nearby, helmets off, weapons leaned against barrels. One chews on something stringy. Another is asleep, head tilted back, mouth wide. A superior arrives, judging by the fur collar and absence of mud on his boots. He looks over the prisoners, counting them with a vague flick of the fingers. His eyes pass right over the traveller like he's luggage. He points. These two, put them to work. And the rest? A shrug. Not my problem. Our traveller is pulled from the group, along with an older man whose left hand is bound in a bloody rag. The others, boys, grizzled fighters, a limping youth with red hair, are led away. He doesn't see them again. Quirky detail. There were reports of prisoners being used as arrow fodder or trench fillers during long sieges. Not metaphorically, literally. Some were chained and sent to dig under enemy fire, or stacked like sandbags to bolster fortifications. Desperate generals found desperate uses for expendable lives. Our traveller's job is slightly less macabre. He's given a shovel, a real one with a cracked handle and a bent edge, but it digs. He's marched to a trench line just beyond the enemy camp and told to start expanding it. No water, no explanation. Just dig. And so he does. For hours. The sun dips. His arms scream. His wounds throb. His lips crack. His back cramps so badly he nearly falls into the pit. But he digs. Around him, other prisoners do the same. No one speaks. Not out of loyalty or strategy, but because if you speak, someone might remember you're there. Silence is a cloak now. Visibility is risk. Eventually night falls. They're herded to a holding pen, literally a pigsty that's been hastily repurposed with rope and a single board guard. The ground is cold, the straw mouldy. Someone coughs through the night. Someone else doesn't wake up at all. He sleeps like a corpse and wakes like one too. The next day, he digs again. Here's where the historian debates begin. What rights did prisoners of war have in the medieval period? There's evidence of rudimentary rules, codes of honour among knights, especially under chivalric orders, but these rarely extended to commoners. Papal decrees occasionally urged mercy, but enforcement was scattershot at best. The line between prisoner and corpse often came down to the mood of the man holding the sword. Our traveller learns to watch moods closely. The guards aren't cruel, exactly, just indifferent. They laugh. They nudge. One throws a rock at a prisoner who's working too slowly. Another offers a crust of bread only to snatch it back and chuckle. It's a game. They are the pieces. At one point, the traveller overhears them talking about a trade. Apparently another army's been spotted nearby, one bearing the standard of his own side. Send word, a guard mutters. Might be we can trade 'em back. 1 bag of salt per head. He doesn't know if that's a joke. He hopes it is. Because salt, valuable though it is, feels like a low price for a man's life. Later that day, a horse limps through camp bearing a wounded messenger. The news is bad. A counterattack is coming soon. Panic whispers through the ranks. Prisoners are moved, hurriedly this time. Not killed, surprisingly, but corralled into a supply tent. A soldier tells them, stay down. If you run, we won't miss. The traveller hides beneath a bench, curled like a cat. The stink of dried blood and stale ale thick in his nose. Then the noise begins. Not the roar of battle, but fire. Something's burning. A cart, maybe. Then two. Then more. The heat creeps through the canvas walls. Shadows dance. The guards are shouting. Then, boom. A siege engine? Number gunpowder. A barrel's been hit. Chaos outside. The tent flap swings open. No guard. No orders. Just night and smoke and a chance. He runs. No plan. No idea where the front is. Just away. His feet scream with every step. His lungs burn. His shoulders soaked again. He tore the bandage. Didn't even notice. He runs. And somehow, impossibly, he makes it. Back behind his own lines. Collapsed in the mud. Half dead. But free. For now. The world looks different after you've survived the wrong side of a battlefield. Sounds are sharper, shadows longer, even the colour of mud seems more personal somehow, as if it remembers which boots once sank into it and who didn't climb out. When the traveller wakes, it's to the sound of flies, thick buzzing clouds of them that drift lazily through the dawn mist like they own the place. And to be fair, they kind of do. The field is theirs now. The humans are just passing through. His body aches in ways that don't make sense anymore. His muscles scream. His fingers twitch involuntarily. His shoulder pulses with heat and sickness. He's half buried in ash and wet leaves, lying somewhere between a thicket and what remains of the army's outer camp. Someone steps over him. Still alive? A face appears. A soldier, mud-caked and wearing one greave and half a smile. Didn't expect you to make it back, the man mutters, then walks off. The traveller tries to sit up. His back cracks like dry bark. His throat feels like it's full of nails. He's still in his torn tunic, dried blood flaking off like old paint. No weapons, no armour, just breath and pain, and the vague knowledge that he's somehow still here. He pushes himself up to his knees. The battlefield rolls out in front of him, a wide, open scar in the earth, pocked with craters, burned tents, and the mangled wreckage of men and beasts. The sunrise doesn't soften anything. It just reveals the ruin with brutal clarity. A cart rolls past, pulled by two emaciated oxen. Its bed is full of bodies, feet dangling out the back. A priest walks alongside, murmuring last rites. Or maybe just counting. Let's take a historical moment. After medieval battles, cleanup was often an afterthought. Victors had little time or inclination to bury the dead properly. In some cases, entire fields were left to rot for days or even weeks. Others were burned en masse to prevent disease. Mass graves were common, marked by nothing more than a pile of rocks, if they were marked at all. The traveller stumbles toward the edge of the camp where makeshift triage stations have been set up. Nothing formal, just open tents, piles of cloth, and the ever-present groaning. He's not sure what he expects. A bed? A hot drink? What he gets is a half-drunk medic who waves him away. No space. Go wait by the fire. So he does. And it's there, sitting by a weak flame that smells suspiciously of horse dung, that the post-battle horror truly sinks in. Because now there's time to see it. To hear it. A boy with his jaw wired shut whimpers as someone cleans a puncture wound in his thigh. A woman covered in soot and ash rocks back and forth holding a soldier's helmet like it's a baby. A man walks in circles, muttering numbers, over and over, until a guard gently nudges him to sit. There's no glory in this moment. No songs, no odes. Just the slow, collective unravelling of people who've seen too much. Let's toss in a fringe tidbit. Some soldiers in medieval times believed that wearing certain relics, pieces of saints' bones, dried rose petals blessed by a monk, even teeth, could protect them from madness. Battle-induced trauma wasn't understood the way we see it today, but they knew it happened. They just called it soul sickness or war's ghost. The traveller sees plenty of ghosts now. They don't float or moan. They sit, stare, shake. He's one of them. Around noon, the fires begin. Not for warmth, for bodies. The field beyond the ridge is stacked with corpses, row on row. Some are burned, others buried shallowly. A few, someone has taken time to cover with cloth. Most aren't touched at all. The smoke rises in long, oily plumes. The smell hits next. Burning flesh and linen, wet wood, hair. He doubles over and retches until there's nothing left. A soldier nearby claps him on the back. Takes a few days to get used to it. He doesn't ask how many few means. Nearby, a unit of fresh recruits arrives. Their boots are clean. Their armour gleams. They laugh. Too loud for this place. One makes a joke about the stink. Another calls the battlefield a mess. They're sent to help dig trenches. He doesn't see them laugh again. Here's a mainstream historical note. Reinforcements were often pulled from towns or villages with little warning. Trained fighters were rare. Most new arrivals were young, scared, and vastly underprepared. Watching them arrive on a field still warm with death was a ritual both necessary and cruel. Their expressions hardened fast, or broke. That night, the traveller finds a spot beside a dying fire. A kind soul hands him a crust of bread and a tin cup of broth. The kindness nearly undoes him. He eats slowly, savouring every drop. Someone begins to sing. A lullaby, maybe. The language is unfamiliar, but the tune is soft, worn smooth like river stones. It carries over the field, blending with the crackle of fire and the distant whistle of wind. He lies down, staring at the dark sky. The stars are back. They twinkle without concern as if nothing has changed. He wonders how many of the dead are looking up from beneath the soil. He wonders how many he'll join by morning. But he doesn't cry. Not tonight. He just watches the stars and tries not to breathe too deeply, because even now the smoke still rises. There's a hush that follows mass death, a stillness too wide to understand. The birds are back, but they don't sing. The trees sway, but they don't rustle. The wind moves through the battlefield like it's stepping carefully over the mess, unwilling to disturb what little dignity remains. At dawn, the traveller wakes to a cough, not his. Someone nearby is hacking violently, the sound raw and wet. A group of soldiers shuffle past, carrying buckets of water and bundles of scorched linen. One is missing half an ear. Another limps with a broken foot wrapped in twine and bark. There is no one left who looks untouched. The morning orders are quiet, half-hearted. Move the wounded. Burn what you can. Bury the rest. As if that's a normal list to tick through before breakfast. He's given a shovel. Of course he is. The gravesite lies just beyond the tree line. Shallow trenches. Piles of limbs. Some of the bodies still wear armour. Some don't wear much of anything anymore. The animals and birds have taken what they want. The rest is for the worms. He digs. Not because he wants to. Because he's told to. Because there's nothing else left to do. This is the part no one sings about. The heroism has long fled. The flags are muddy. The trumpets bent. The war poems skip this bit. The aching backs, the splinters, the stink. The moment when you lift a body that used to talk, eat, snore, and now it's just a shape, a weight, an echo. Let's talk historical logistics. Burying the dead was a grim necessity. In some battles, pits were dug before the fighting even began, in anticipation of high casualties. Monks and priests sometimes oversaw the burials, praying as the dead were lowered. In rushed scenarios, bodies were simply stacked and covered in lime to hasten decomposition. If lime ran out, dirt and forgetfulness had to suffice. The traveller finds himself in a group of 4 assigned to dig and carry. The sun is already high by mid-morning. Sweat mingles with ash. Flies buzz thick as fog. The smell is omnipresent. Cloying. Dense. Physical. It clings to the throat, coats the skin, gets in the eyes. He stops gagging after an hour. It just becomes part of the air. They move the bodies carefully at first, then faster, then carelessly. The weight wears them down and dignity is heavy. One man curses as he tries to pry a corpse's sword loose, then slips, falls, and vomits in the trench. No one laughs. No one helps. Eventually a priest appears. Not a high churchman, just a weary friar in a soot-stained robe, murmuring Latin with a cracked voice. He sprinkles water on the mound. It doesn't soak in, just beads and rolls off like even the soil has had enough. Our traveller leans on his shovel, eyes burning. His hands are blistered again, his bandages filthy, crusted with blood. His feet ache so badly he's not sure if the bones are cracked or if they're simply mad at him. He looks at the bodies and wonders, why not me? It's not survivor's guilt exactly. It's more like survivor's bewilderment. He didn't do anything special. He didn't fight like a hero or inspire anyone or hold the line with grit and defiance. He got lucky. He ducked at the right time. He hid when he had to. He ran. And now he's here, alive, carrying strangers into pits. He finishes his shift around dusk. The pits are full. The dirt is uneven. A few helmets stick out, a hand here, a foot there. No one bothers to fix it. He staggers back to camp. Someone hands him bread. Another man offers him a flask. He drinks. It burns. He doesn't ask what it is. He sits near the outer tents, staring at the edge of the woods where the sun drips gold through the branches. Somewhere behind him, a woman sings, low, wordless, more hum than melody. It's comforting, like the noise a mother might make without realizing it. Here's a curious historical fact. Some medieval soldiers believed that the souls of the dead hovered near their bodies until buried properly. This belief wasn't always religious. It was folkloric. Spirits unsettled by incomplete funerals were said to wander, bringing bad luck, illness, or madness. Burial was as much a spiritual duty as a sanitary one. The traveller believes it now, not in the spirits, in the need to give some kind of ending, and to mark a period after the sentence of a life. That night he can't sleep. His legs cramp. His mouth is dry. He's scraped every inch of skin that could be scraped. So he wanders, quietly, past the smouldering fires and the snoring soldiers, and he finds the pit again, fresh dirt, software. He kneels beside it, places a small rock at its edge. It's smooth, polished by water. He picked it up days ago during a river crossing. He'd meant to keep it for luck, but luck is relative now. He leaves it there, a marker, a pebble's worth of respect. And as he turns to go, he hears something, a faint breath of wind, or maybe a voice. It says nothing. It just lingers. He doesn't look back, because he knows what's coming next. Tomorrow isn't rest. Tomorrow is regrouping. Tomorrow is moving on, because armies don't stop for mourning. They just close their eyes and march forward. No one sounds a trumpet when the army pulls away from the battlefield. There's no victory speech, no parade, just the shuffle of boots through churned mud, the low groan of carts over rutted paths, and the distant crackle of flames as the last of the dead are set alight or covered in earth. Some men whistle, most don't. Most are too busy not falling apart. Our traveller walks with them, not because he's ordered to, no one's bothering with orders now, but because staying behind means rotting with the corpses or being trampled by the next force that decides this land is worth dying over. His steps are slow, his blisters have opened again, and now his socks, what's left of them, squish with every pace. His axe is gone. He left it back at the pit on purpose. It didn't feel right to carry it anymore. Instead, he has a stick, just a crooked branch with a smooth end picked up from the side of the road. He doesn't need a weapon, not today, maybe not ever again. The army, what's left of it, is heading west, to another staging point, another war, another field with a name that history might remember, but none of these men ever will. Let's touch on a historical reality. Medieval campaigns didn't always end with decisive battles. Many conflicts dragged on for years, even decades, with troops moving from site to site, fighting, recovering, fighting again. Armies were rarely disbanded. Soldiers didn't go home unless they deserted, died, or limped away without being noticed. That's what the traveller's doing now, limping, unnoticed. They march through a ruined village by mid-morning. The houses are mostly abandoned, roofs collapsed or burned through. One still stands, miraculously intact. A dog growls from beneath the steps. A child peeks through a window, then vanishes before he can blink. No one stops to explain anything. No one owes these people anything, and the villagers know better than to beg. Soldiers are hungry, and hunger makes monsters. The traveller reaches a stream. The others keep going, but he stops, kneels. The water is cold, clear. He dips his hands, splashes his face. It stings. The cut on his brow opens again, trickling red down his cheek. But he's clean, briefly. He drinks, then looks at his reflection. What stares back is not the man who arrived a few days ago. It's someone older, hollow-eyed, dirt smudges where cheekbones used to be, a beard starting to creep across his jaw. He rubs at it, as if that might bring back the face beneath. It doesn't. From behind, a voice. "You staying?" He turns. It's the scarred veteran, the one who joked on day one, who survived every charge, every trench, every horror. "Don't know," the traveller says. The man shrugs. You wouldn't be the first. He tosses a chunk of bread. The traveller catches it on instinct. Eat something, then decide. The veteran walks on. The traveller stays a while longer. He sits beneath a tree and eats the bread slowly. It's stale and tastes faintly of onions. He doesn't mind. Around him the world breathes again. Birdsong, a breeze, the rustle of leaves, and for a moment, just a moment, it's almost normal. But then the wind shifts, and he smells smoke again. He stands, shoulders his pack, and starts walking. Not because he wants to fight again, but because this world doesn't offer many choices anymore. He passes the last burned cart on the edge of the forest. Beyond it lies a road. Maybe it leads to another camp, maybe a town, maybe nothing at all. He doesn't care. What matters now is moving, because staying still feels too much like dying, and he's not ready for that yet. And so the traveller walks on, alone now, his boots whispering against the dirt road as the last wisps of smoke fade into the distance behind him. The worst is over, perhaps, or maybe just paused. In this world, peace is always temporary, stitched together with threadbare hope and silent, aching prayers. The sun is lower now, casting long shadows across the hills and painting the sky with sleepy gold. His pace slows, not from fear, but fatigue, the kind that sinks past the bones into the soul. Each step a small promise that he's still here, still breathing, still choosing to move. The road bends gently into a grove of trees where the air is cooler, softer. He stops beneath one, rests a hand on its bark. It's rough, real, alive, and so is he. Somewhere nearby, a stream murmurs over stones. A breeze stirs the leaves above, and for the first time in days no one is shouting. No horns, no hoofbeats, just the hush of a world beginning to forget the battle ever happened. As night arrives, he finds a patch of grass, lies down, and watches the stars blink one by one into place. They are distant, indifferent, beautiful. His eyes drift shut, not from fear, but finally, from peace. Tomorrow will come, but tonight he sleeps and dreams of silence.